People think being a night security guard is boring, and they're right, until it isn't. Most nights, I sit in a small windowless room surrounded by 10 screens that loop the same dull footage. Empty corridors, shuttered stores, motionless escalators, and flickering fluorescent lights. It's like watching a ghost town through a dozen eyes. But one night last winter, I saw something on those screens that still wakes me up at 3 a.m. It was a Wednesday. Quiet. The cleaning crew had just finished the top floor, and I was alone in the control room, reviewing the previous day's recordings for a reported theft. Routine stuff. I was fast-forwarding through the timestamp, 2:47 a.m., when something on camera 7 made me stop. The shot showed the East Wing corridor, outside a small boutique that had been closed for months. But standing in the middle of the hallway was a woman. She wasn't moving, just standing there. Her back was to the camera, her long dark hair hanging down past her shoulders. At first, I assumed it was an employee, or maybe a cleaner who'd forgotten something. But her posture was strange, stiff like she was posed. I toggled the camera. No ID badge, no cleaning cart, just her, alone. And then I noticed something else. Her shadow wasn't lining up with the lights. There's a bright overhead strip right above that section, so shadows should fall straight down. But hers was angled, like the light source was coming from somewhere else entirely. I felt my stomach drop. I radioed the floor patrol. "Hey Rico, you near the East Wing?" Static. Then his voice. "Yeah, just passed through there." "Why?" I glanced back at the screen. The woman was gone. "I just saw someone standing by the boutique," I said. "Check it out." "Copy that." I watched his flashlight beam appear on the monitor, sweeping across the hallway where she'd been. Nothing. "Clear," he said after a minute. "Nobody here." But here's where it gets weird. When I reviewed the footage again the next morning, the woman wasn't there. Not blurred, not glitched. Gone. The file skipped from 2:46 to 2:48, like those few seconds never existed. I reported it to my supervisor, who brushed it off as a camera fault. But I knew that footage hadn't glitched. The timestamp was still clean, like something had cut out the recording manually. A week later, I saw her again. Same hallway, same time. But this time she was facing the camera. Her face was pale, too pale, washed out like overexposed film. Her eyes were just dark hollows, and her mouth hung open slightly like she was whispering something I couldn't hear. I leaned closer to the screen. Her lips moved again, slow and deliberate. 3 words. "He's behind you." I froze. My heart stopped. I turned, half expecting someone to be there, but the control room was empty. When I looked back at the monitor, she was gone again. The next morning, I tried to show the clip to my boss, but the footage, the entire file from that camera, had been overwritten. Automatic purge, they said. Except our system doesn't delete footage until 30 days pass. That file was less than 24 hours old. Rico quit that same week after saying he kept hearing footsteps behind him on patrol. I didn't blame him. The last time I saw her was a month later, during a live feed check. Only, it wasn't her standing in the hallway this time. It was me. Same uniform, same flashlight. I watched, horrified, as my double walked slowly toward the boutique door, paused, and turned toward the camera. My mouth moved. Same 3 words. "He's behind you." And then the screen cut to static. I checked the hallway seconds later. Nothing there. But when I returned to the control room, every monitor was frozen on the same frame. Me, facing the camera, smiling. The IT team replaced the entire system after that. But sometimes, when I look at the live feed, I still catch a flicker, like an image hidden between frames. And when the lights dim at 2:47 a.m., I never look directly at the east wing anymore. Because I know, one night, I'll see myself again. And this time, it won't just be on the screen. You get used to silence when you work night shifts. After midnight, the mall feels like a living thing that's fallen asleep. The air vents hum like slow breathing. Signs creak softly in the dark, and the echo of your own footsteps is sometimes enough to make your chest tighten. I started noticing it around my 3rd month at Riverside Mall. The intercom system, the one used for announcements, background music, and lost child alerts during the day, would sometimes click on by itself after hours. A soft, static hum. Nothing more. At first, I assumed it was a glitch. The system's old, probably installed back when flip phones were still a thing. I reported it to maintenance twice, and they said it was likely interference from the cleaning crew's radios. But then, it started speaking. It was a Friday, just past 1 a.m. I'd done my second patrol and was back in the control room, sipping stale coffee and scrolling through security feeds on my monitor. The cleaning crew had left early because of a broken water pipe on level 1. I was the only one inside the building. That's when the intercom crackled. "Hello? Can someone?" Static. "Hear me?" It was faint but human, a woman's voice. I froze. The speaker above my head buzzed softly, and I could almost feel the air vibrating. "Hello? Please, I'm locked in." I reached for the receiver. "Ma'am, this is security. Where are you located?" The reply came after a second of silence. I think I'm in the restroom near the food court. The lights went out. I can't see anything." I glanced at the camera grid. The feed for that corridor showed nothing. Total darkness. The motion sensors hadn't triggered either. "Stay calm," I said, standing up and clipping my flashlight to my belt. "I'll come get you. Don't move." I started down the service hallway, the sound of my boots echoing off the walls. As I passed the empty food court, I noticed how cold it had become. My breath was fogging up in front of me. The door to the women's restroom was closed. The light above it flickered weakly. I knocked. "Security! Are you in there?" No reply. I tried the door. It opened easily, too easily. And the smell that drifted out was like mildew and something metallic. The lights inside flickered in and out, throwing the stalls into brief slices of visibility. Empty. "Hello?" Then the intercom, the same one that had called me here, clicked on again. Only this time, it wasn't the ceiling speaker. It was coming from inside the restroom, from one of the stalls. The voice said, "You found me." And then, laughter. Not loud, not manic, just quiet, slow, and too close. I shone my light across the stalls one by one, the beam shaking in my hand. Each one was empty until I reached the last. The door was half open. The speaker for the mall's intercom system was lying on the floor inside, the wires snaking out from under it. Someone had removed it from the ceiling. I backed away, grabbed my radio. "Control to base. I need a camera check on Zone B restrooms." Now the operator's voice came back confused. "Zone B. That area's dark, man. Cameras have been off for over a week. Maintenance requested a power cut for rewiring." That's when I realized something else. The voice I heard earlier, it hadn't said, "the restroom near the food court." I replayed it in my head. It had said, "I'm in the one with mirrors." That's the restroom in the north wing, the one sealed off after the 2017 fire. I went back to the control room, shaking, and pulled the old blueprints. That restroom doesn't even have a working power line anymore. The entire section's disconnected from the grid. Still, I heard the intercom click on one last time that night. "Thank you for finding me." The next morning, the mall manager told me the intercom wires near the sealed wing were cut open, as if someone had been speaking through them manually. But the insulation dust and cobwebs proved no one had been in there for years. I don't patrol that side anymore. And every time the intercom hums softly during my shift, I turn the volume down and pretend I didn't hear it. Because now I know, sometimes it's not a glitch. By the time this happened, I'd been working at the mall for almost a year. I'd seen and heard things I couldn't explain. Shadows moving across dead cameras, voices coming through dead lines, and reflections that didn't quite match up. But what I found that night made all of that feel small. It started with a simple task. Maintenance had asked me to check a leaking pipe somewhere near the lower storage level, an area most of us barely visited. That part of the mall had been built in the 1980s, before renovations sealed off half the access tunnels. It wasn't even on the current blueprint anymore. I took the service elevator down around 1:30 a.m. The air grew colder the further I went. When the doors opened, I was hit with the smell of dust and rusted metal, like a basement that hadn't been touched in years. The lights flickered weakly, and half the bulbs were dead. I followed the drip of water echoing down the hallway until I reached the source, a busted pipe spraying a slow trickle onto the concrete floor. I called it in, logged the issue, and turned to leave. That's when I noticed it, a door at the end of the corridor. It didn't match the others. The regular maintenance doors were steel gray with safety labels. But this one was a dull, matte black. No handle, no sign. It shouldn't have been there. I checked the map on my phone. The corridor wasn't even listed. But when I walked closer, I could feel a faint draft coming through the seam around the door, like air was moving behind it. For some reason, my flashlight started to flicker. I tapped it, and the beam steadied, only for me to realize the door was slightly open. Just a crack. "Hello?" I called out. No response. I pushed the door gently, and it creaked inward. Beyond it was a staircase leading down into darkness. Concrete steps, steep and narrow, disappearing into black. I should have left. But curiosity is a dangerous thing when you work nights. There's something about being the only one awake in a sleeping place. You start to feel like rules don't apply anymore. I descended slowly, one step at a time. The air grew damp, every sound echoed weirdly, like the space was bigger than it looked. After what felt like a minute, my boot hit level ground again. I shone my light around and froze. It was another hallway, but this one was identical to the one above. Same layout, same pipes, same peeling paint. Except the lights down here were all off, and the floor was wet. There was something written on the wall in what looked like black marker. "Keep walking, don't turn around." My heart pounded. I raised my radio. "Control, this is Unit 2. Do you copy?" Static. I moved forward, trying to find any sign of another exit. Each step echoed like I was walking in circles. Then I noticed something ahead. Another door. Same black paint. Same faint draft seeping through the cracks. Without thinking, I opened it and found myself standing in the mall lobby. But it wasn't the lobby. Everything was off. The lights were dimmer. The advertisements were from years ago. Stores that had closed down long before I was hired were open and lit up. And there was no sound, not even the hum of electricity. It felt like walking into a photograph. I took a few steps forward, and my footsteps didn't echo the way they should. Then, across the atrium, I saw someone. A man in a security uniform. My uniform. He was walking toward me, flashlight in hand. And as he got closer, I realized his face was mine. I stumbled back. He stopped, tilted his head slightly, and smiled. Then he raised his hand and pointed behind me. I turned, and there was another door. Only this time it was open. Inside was pitch black, but I could hear movement, Slow breathing, wet footsteps shifting just out of view. When I turned back, the other me was gone. I bolted for the door I came through, slammed it shut, and ran up the stairs until my lungs burned. When I burst back into the real maintenance corridor, the air was warm again. The door was gone. Nothing but solid concrete where it had been. I radioed it in, but the maintenance crew said there's no sub-level access under that corridor. They even brought me the blueprints. It just ends in a solid wall. But I know what I saw, and sometimes when I'm walking that same hallway on patrol, I still hear a faint drip echoing from behind the wall. And once, only once, I heard my own voice whisper through my radio, "Keep walking. Don't turn around." I've worked as a night shift security guard at the Riverside Mall for almost 4 years now. It's a massive place, 3 floors, over 100 stores, and when the lights go out after closing, it becomes a maze of silence and shadows. It began on a Tuesday night. I was doing my routine round through the second-floor clothing section, a cluster of boutique stores that close at 9 p.m. sharp. By the time I reached them, the whole wing was dark, except for the glow of exit signs and the faint hum of the air conditioning. There's something about that silence after closing that never sits right with me. The mall feels hollow, like it's waiting for something. Anyway, I passed Glimmer and Grace, one of those expensive fashion stores filled with glass walls, mirrors, and a dozen mannequins wearing overpriced dresses. And that's when I noticed it. One of them had its head turned toward the hallway. Now I know how that sounds. Mannequins are supposed to face out, right? But these ones were arranged in a perfect diagonal line, facing the same direction. I remember because the symmetry always bugged me. Too neat, too perfect. But this one was turned, just slightly. Its chin angled toward the exit, like it had been watching me walk by. I stopped, stared for a few seconds, then shook it off. Probably a cleaner or visual merchandiser moved it earlier. But the next night, it had moved again. This time it was pressed right up against the glass wall, hands flat against it, face tilted downward, almost like it was peering out. I walked closer. The glass had smudges on it, 5 faint prints, like real fingertips. Something about that made my stomach twist. I checked the door, locked. The store lights were off. Still, I took out my flashlight and shone it inside. Everything else looked normal. Except, in the back of the store, by the dressing rooms, another mannequin was standing in the corner, facing the wall. That one definitely hadn't been there before. I told myself I was imagining things. People rearranged displays all the time. But the next morning, when I mentioned it to the store manager, she frowned and said, "That's impossible. We haven't changed the setup in a week." She showed me a photo from her phone, the current display lineup. The mannequin I saw near the dressing rooms wasn't in it. I decided to check the security footage. Around 2:14 a.m., the camera in front of Glimmer and Grace flickered once, just static for a second. And when the image came back, one of the mannequins had shifted slightly to the right. A few frames later, it was facing the hallway. Then the feed cut out for exactly 6 minutes. When it came back, the mannequin was right against the glass, staring into the camera. I still remember its face, smooth, featureless, but somehow aware. That night I didn't patrol that wing, but around 3 a.m., the motion alarm tripped. Zone 4, Glimmer and Grace. I pulled up the feed, static again. Then a quick blur, a flash of movement, and the alarm went silent. When I went down to check, everything was exactly as before, except the mannequin wasn't there anymore. I found it 2 hours later near the service hallway, the one that leads to the back storage area. It was standing perfectly still beside the locked door, facing it, like it was waiting for someone to open it. I called maintenance. They swore no one had been down there. I even checked the access logs, no keycards used. We moved the mannequin back into the store the next morning. But by the end of the week, 3 more were gone. Now, when I do my rounds, I swear I can hear faint scraping sounds behind the glass. Sometimes the security lights catch a reflection that looks too tall to be mine. And 2 nights ago, I noticed something that made my chest go cold. In the control room, each camera feed has a timestamp in the corner, always digital, always steady. But the feed for the boutique flickered. The timestamp changed. Not forward, backward. Frame by frame, the footage started rewinding itself until it stopped on the image of a mannequin standing alone in the dark, head turned slightly toward the lens. Then, across the bottom of the screen, a faint message appeared, flickering in white text. "Don't turn around." And I swear, I heard footsteps behind me,